What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to How Do I Want to Do This? This is our series where we take a look at all playable options available to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, then we rank them on a scale of 1 to 10 and either build them or fix them depending on how they rank. Now today we come to one of the most famous and beloved subclasses in all of, definitely the Warlocks, maybe even all of Dungeons & Dragons. Well, although some people may have a differing opinion, but we are talking about the Hexblade Warlock today, the ultimate one-level dip that is out there, but we get to look at the whole thing as a comprehensive list today, and I'm excited to do that and see how it compares to the other options. But before we jump into it, make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe if you haven't already, share the video with your friends, and of course click the bell so you're notified when new videos are uploaded. So what is a Hexblade Warlock, right? Well, we essentially are locked into being a weapon user, right? We have some kind of weapon that has something in it, possibly, or at least there's something tied to it. You can, of course, customize this story with your DM, but there's a lot of different ways that you can do this. And it gives you a practical item, a practical thing that is in your hand that can be used to tell your story, right? It's a really compelling storytelling measure, which I think is really cool. Maybe you found this, maybe it was a family heirloom, whatever it happens to be. There's a lot of different ways that you can go about it. But how does this fare mechanically compared to the other options? Let's find out. Starting off at level 1, we are going to start with our expanded spell list as always, and this list is pretty dang good. So shield, of course, right off the bat, one of my favorite spells. I've made that pretty clear. We get a lot of the smite spells from over on the paladin list, which is cool. We also get things like Cone of Cold, we get Phantasmal Killer, Elemental Weapon, as well as some kind of defensive features in Blur and Blink. These are pretty cool, and they definitely fit within the theme. Now, Blur is fine, but Blink I'm really not a big fan of, just because you don't really have control of the spell. There's a lot of times where you might be in a good situation if you roll right, and if you don't roll right, you're screwed, and I don't like that randomness, but Blur is cool. I like that as a defensive feature. And so you get basically one offensive and one defensive spell for your first 3 tiers, and then after that it's pretty much all offense, which makes sense, right? This is definitely going to be an offense focused subclass, seeing how we're focusing on a weapon. Overall, this is not a bad list at all. I would honestly take almost all of these. I think almost all of them are really good, and what's huge is that we're getting these smite spells really early, right? Think about where the paladin would be getting these smite spells. The paladin is a half caster, so it's not getting, say, banishing smite until level 17. We're getting it at level 9. That's a big difference, right? That's a huge difference in power, and for that you can't take that for granted. That's huge. Overall though, I'm gonna give this a 9 out of 10. I think the one spell kind of holds this back, but besides that, pretty much all of them are very solid options. Moving on, we get a couple of features here at level 1 as well in order to get us started, and the first is Hexblade's Curse. This is a way that we can curse targets, which is pretty cool, and it gives us some really nice benefits. So as a bonus action, we can choose one creature that is within 30 feet of us and curse that target for 1 minute. If the target dies, or we die, or we're incapacitated, then the curse will end, but otherwise that creature is under the following effects. There is extra damage dealt equal to our proficiency bonus, we get double our crit rate, and if the target dies, we regain hit points equal to our warlock level plus our charisma modifier. We can only do this once per rest. All of these things are really cool, right? Bonus damage is always great. Having a 10% chance to crit is huge, right? And then we just get some HP back if the target dies. It doesn't even say it has to be us who deals the final blow, just if the cursed target dies. That's the only prerequisite, right? That's pretty cool, and that really expands the usefulness of a feature like this. Overall, all of this stuff is really nice. It's held back really by just the once per rest feature, but besides that, this is pretty solid. Overall, I've got to give this an 8 out of 10. Only being able to use it once per rest is a little tough. I wish it was more like proficiency bonus or something like that, but it is what it is. It's still a very good feature. Also at level 1, we get Hex Warrior, and this honestly is one of the main reasons why people come to this subclass. And yeah, it seems very simple, but there are a lot of really crazy implications with this, right? So with this, we get a few things. We get, number 1, proficiency with medium armor, shields, and martial weapons. In addition to that, we can channel our patron through any weapon that we choose. So whenever we finish a long rest, we can touch one weapon that we are proficient with, and as long as it lacks the two-handed property. When we attack with that weapon, we now get to use charisma instead of strength or dexterity for attack and damage rolls. And of course this lasts until we finish a long rest, and then of course we can re-up it once we do that again. Then of course through our Pact of the Blade Pact boon, there are also some other ways that we can improve upon this, and this just expands that wording there. This is huge, right? Being able to attack with charisma instead of having to go with strength or dexterity is massive, because now we're not split, right? We already want to have a good charisma so that our spells are doing okay. So then we would have to do strength or dexterity, depending on if we're using a finesse weapon. We want a decent constitution so that we can maintain something like Hex or whatever else we are concentrating on. Maybe it's Blink, Blur, whatever it happens to be. And then, you know, we've got wisdom saving throws that are going to come in. It's just, there's a lot here, right? And it makes us a lot less mad if we can just focus on charisma. And that's exactly what this does. That is huge mechanically. Plus, we're bulkier because we have medium armor, shields, and martial weapons, which is amazing. What this doesn't mention, of course, is that our packed weapon can then, of course, be converted to one of our spellcasting focuses through the use of Eldritch Invocations. And so that means that we can hold a weapon and a shield and still cast all our spells, which is fantastic, and we don't have to worry about somatic components. That's huge, right? All of that works into the general Warlock kit, and trust me, there's plenty of amazing stuff that works with Pact of the Blade and specifically with Hexblade. It's pretty nutty, right? You know, we've covered the melee type of Warlocks before, not with this subclass though. I'll put one of them up in the icon above. We built two of them actually, two melee focused Warlocks back at the beginning of the Warlock section, and they both were decently solid. This is insane. This is a 10 out of 10 in case you were guessing. This is just ridiculous. I don't know what to tell you. This also qualifies us for use with Elven Accuracy, which is something that is not talked about a lot. You know, you can't do Elven Accuracy with Strength, but you would have to go with a finesse weapon in order to work it, so that really lowers your ability to make that work. With this plus Eldritch Invocations, our options are huge. We can choose almost any type of weapon that we want and make it work with Elven Accuracy, which is insane. At level 6, we get a Cursed Spectre, and this allows us to make a friend. Kind of. So whenever we slay a creature, that's why I said kind of, so we can temporarily bind it to our service. When we slay this humanoid, we can cause its spirit to rise from its corpse as a specter, and the statistics of which are in the monster manual for you to reference. When the specter appears, it gains temporary hit points equal to half our warlock level. We roll initiative for it, and it has its own turns. It obeys your verbal commands and has a special bonus to its attack rolls equal to our charisma modifier. It remains in our service until the end of our next long rest, at which case it moves on, and once we bind a specter with this feature, we cannot do so again until we finish a long rest. So essentially, this is kind of a like summon undead light, kind of, except you have a lot more control over it, I think. This is just a pretty solid little helper that can follow you for a really, really, really long time. At least until the end of your next long rest, which is great. And then of course you can use this again and just get another one, right? So you can have one per day. And honestly, that's plenty, right? This is a meat shield, at least in combat. Otherwise, it's there to just carry your stuff. And either way, I think this is pretty cool. Is this the most insane feature? No, this thing's not doing all that much damage. It's not taking all that much as far as hits goes. It is nice having the temporary hit points. That definitely helps it in the bulk department, but its AC isn't that great. It's not hitting that hard, and so this definitely is going to fall off in usefulness as we level up, because it really doesn't scale all that well outside of the temporary hit points. So For that, I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. Like, it's okay. It's not bad, but it definitely doesn't scale as well as it could. At level 10, we get Armor of Hexes, and this is a pretty nice defensive feature, which is kind of cool. So with this, whenever we have a creature under our Hexblade's curse, and it hits us with an attack roll, we can roll a d6, and on a 4 or higher, the attack misses us regardless of what the roll was. This is kind of wild, right? So we're gonna get this once per short rest, which isn't too bad, right? I said I would have liked it with more frequency, but it is what it is. So, you know, imagine this is the big bad guy, right? This is a boss or you know, mini boss or whatever it happens to be. That's the target of your curse, right? So you're gonna get a lot out of that. You're dealing extra damage to it. You're up in the fray. It tries to hit you with something, and then it misses. The only issue with this is that it does use your reaction. I wish that it was unlimited amount of times as long as the curse is up, since it's already limited in how many times you can use it, but it does work on your reaction. So it is just once per turn, unfortunately, but still, it's not bad, right? If there is an attack roll that hits you, right, you get to react to being hit. So if it's something with multi-attack, let's say it misses you on the first hit and then hits you on the second hit, you can then blow this and you've used it in a useful way, as long as you roll right. It does not refund you if it does not work out in your favor, unfortunately. And I mean, technically you could just roll a d4 and it's a 3 or 4, or I mean, it's just a 50% chance, right? But still, a 50-50 is not bad, and I will take that pretty much every time. This is a 9 out of 10 feature. I think this is fantastic. It's very spammable, gives us a really, really nice use of our reaction, and I definitely can't complain that it's here. Finally, at level 14, we get Master of Hexes, and this once again allows us to stack a little bit more on top of that Hexblade's curse. So whenever a creature dies that is under the effect of our Hexblade's curse, we can apply the curse to a different creature within 30 feet of us, as long as we are not incapacitated. The only catch is that we do not gain the hit points back when that creature is slain, only the first one. This is still great, right? This is essentially the transfer feature from something like Hunter's Mark, right? Although it does wait till 14th level and Hunter's Mark has it kind of built in, which is, but still, this is not that bad. I still like the ability to move this around because that's free damage, that's extra crits, that's a lot of really good stuff. So ultimately, it's still worth it. It is still absolutely worth it every time. And I love the flexibility to not just have to, I use it and it's gone, right? The creature dies, it's gone, right? So this is nice. This is actually really, really nice. There's no limit on how many times you can do this. It doesn't say that it takes your reaction. Nothing. It's free. It happens. It's great, right? So of course we still have to play by the rules of the original feature, but still, this is fantastic, and I absolutely love that. That makes this a 9 out of 10. I think this is super, super solid, and I really, I don't want to leave home without something like this. So what do we think of the Hexblade Warlock? This one is interesting, right? Obviously, this is one of the most famous / infamous subclasses that's out there, right? The main reason is because so many people take one level and then get out, right? Because they put so much at level 1, especially the ability to attack with charisma with your attack rolls. That is insane, right? So a lot of builds, you're gonna see a ton of paladins that take one level in the Hexblade and then they're gone, right? It's not for story reasons, it's completely for mechanical reasons, right? And so that makes this tough, right? Because you don't see nearly as many people going deep into Hexblade. You see way more people, at least at tables where multi-classing is allowed, you see way more people taking a 1-level dip in order to make themselves a lot more sad instead of mad. And that's kind of hard, right? Because ultimately this is a really good subclass, right? This is a really solid one overall. Is it a 10 out of 10 all the way up though? I honestly don't know if it is. Now, it's very, very good. It's very, very solid, and we can't undersell how good Hex Warrior is. Hex Warrior is fantastic in how just Dungeons and Dragons works, right? It's incredible being able to convert all that over. Hexblade's Curse is also incredible. Being able to deal extra damage, being able to crit twice as often is fantastic. The only limitation is just once per short rest, right? Which then gets fixed once we get Master of Hexes a little bit later on, as long as we do everything within the minute, right? Overall, it's pretty good, right? A Cursed Spectre definitely has some uses, at least as a meat shield, right? It can carry stuff, it can be kind of the one that tests out the traps, right? There are plenty of uses that you can make for this Spectre, and I think that there's a lot of useful stuff there. And of course, Armor of Hexes, you got a 50% chance to just not take damage once per turn. That's pretty fantastic, right? I don't see why I would ever complain about that. That's really, really great. So how does this compare to some of the other subclasses as an overall kit, as everything combined? I am reluctant in giving it the rating that I am going to give it. I personally think that it ranks about a 9.5. I'm willing to round up to a 10 though, to please the masses. I personally don't know if this kit really deserves a full 10 out of 10 in its entirety. Obviously the level 1 features are incredible and they are carrying the weight of most of this ranking, right? I talk about this in my other videos of I have to base my rankings way more so on the early features than I do as it goes. And this one starts off so strong. I can't deny just how strong this one starts. And yeah, it kind of tapers with the Cursed Spectre. It's fine, but then it kind of picks back up a little bit. And so overall, I've got to rank this one super high. It's really, really good. So let me know down below if you think that I deserve to go a little lower on it, or if you think it's totally fine at a 10. Let me know down below. We, of course, going to be building one of these later this week, so make sure to check that out as well. And we've got our last week of UNPL Season 5 coming out on Saturday. Until then, stay safe out there, stay healthy. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.